Hello and welcome to another episode of Anfield Watch. Today we're going to be talking about all things to do with Liverpool's academy and Liverpool's youngsters, most notably Rio Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni, who have both really caught the eye in pre-season. And to do that, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Lewis Bower, who I don't really need to introduce. I think if you know Liverpool, if you follow Liverpool, and if you follow Liverpool's academy, you will know who he is. Lewis, welcome to the show.
Yeah, you too, calm, Bence. Thank you very much. You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And, I'm very excited about Liverpool's future at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of first team arrivals, but we're going to be talking about a player who's probably been Liverpool's player of pre-season, really, Rio Ngumoha. How impressed have you been by him? And has it surprised you how good he's been?
Yeah, it is somewhat of a surprise. I'm not only impressed at the player himself, but I think I'm sure you'll agree that as somebody who's watched the academy, that the improvement you can see is really putting a lot of work. With Ngumoha, I do think he's a player who thrives in a more structured approach, which maybe he doesn't have with the under-18s and the under-21s, which that we were slightly critical when he first joined the club. I would say maybe slightly underwhelming, maybe unfairly judged. But when he's got that structure around him, where he can't afford to be double marked, where he can maybe trust his teammates a little bit more, where the more obvious options, and he can use the momentum there to find those gaps. I think he's going to become a lot better. And we've seen him as he moves up the age group show that level of improvement. But this pre-season, he's just been on another level, hasn't he? The confidence to take on, and he's got great momentum around him at the minute. You wouldn't want to take that away from him, and I'm sure he'll be in the squad for the Community Shield.
That is the question that I was going to ask you next. Not about him being in the squad for the Community Shield, but we are talking about a 16-year-old here. He's almost 17, but it's easy to forget just how young he is because of how impressive he has been. Now, on social media and among Liverpool journalists connected to the club, there's been a lot of talk about him being considered as a senior option next season, potentially even being the sixth forward option for Liverpool. Do you think he is ready for that role? And do you think he can make an impact, not just in pre-season, but in those League Cup games or even in the Premier League and the Champions League?
I would say it's not so much about him being ready, but I think the situation suits everybody. I don't think it would be too much of a drop in quality if he was. So you'd assume it'd be the third choice left winger behind Gakpo and Ekitike. So it wouldn't be relied upon. And I'd say he's probably not ready for a loan. He only moved to the city last year. Very, very different change of environment. And he's got momentum behind him at Liverpool at the minute. And he's probably at a point in his career where he's good enough to go out and make an impact in a championship. But I think we've seen loans are so difficult to nail down and get right that a bad loan at this point would just take that momentum away and massively set him back. Although we've seen players have bad loans before and come back for it, but I think at the minute it's just not needed. And there's no harm in keeping him around the under-21 squad and then pulling him up when we do need him for those cup games, African Cup of Nations. I would rather keep Rio Ngumoha as a third choice left winger than sign any kind of projects player, unless that's with a view to that player also playing on the right-hand side. I think that's actually a more pressing matter, and I think the emergence of Ngumoha in pre-season has eased any worries about signing a left winger. I would, unless it's going to be a Rodrigo level player, I wouldn't be in a rush to sign a left winger at the moment.
Yeah, I think probably most fans will have the same opinion. I wanted to ask as well, What do you think is a reasonable expectation for Rio Ngumoha in terms of minutes or games played for next season at first team level?
It's a really tricky one, isn't it? And we saw it last season. It maybe was difficult for Slot to nail down. Maybe he would have liked to afford a few more minutes to Trey Nyoni, but when there's games to be won and also other squad senior players to keep happy, it's really difficult. He should start with the season with the under-21s, and then just flitting between the under-21s and the first team, really picking up minutes here and there where he can. He's definitely good enough to make an impact in the last 20 minutes of games. In terms of expectation, it would be unreasonable to expect him to be starting games. Maybe in the Cup, maybe in the Champions League if we're in a comfortable position, maybe in the second leg of a tie if we have a comfortable lead. Like I say, it is a really tricky one because he does need senior minutes for his development, but it's about maintaining that balance. I think he will be a squad player for Liverpool this season. We've seen Slot maybe does have higher standards in terms of using the academy players, but when he does find one that he likes, I don't think he'll be afraid to use them as a sort of fire nod.
Yeah, and I think this leads us onto the conversation of Trey Nyoni, who was the only other academy player who was promoted to the first team in pre-season, and I thought personally that he's been almost as equally impressive as Ngumoha. Maybe he doesn't get the plaudits because he doesn't score or get the assist or make those eye-catchy dribbles, although he did score in one of the games for Liverpool. But for me, the way he's adapted and the way he sort of reads the game, the passes that he makes, how comfortable he looks in possession, and I thought what was really impressive for me was against Athletic Bilbao when he was asked to play as a centre-back. He didn't look out of place. He looked completely comfortable. Now, I'm not suggesting that Liverpool should forget about signing a centre-back and using Nyoni there. Obviously, Liverpool still need to sign a centre-back, but I was very impressed with how he overcame that challenge. Obviously, playing out of position is not easy, especially for a young player, especially at that level. But he really stood up to the challenge, and he looks like a really, really interesting player as well.
Yeah, one of the words, I tried to get the lowdown on him from someone very well placed in the game before he signed. One of the words that was used was multifunctional, and I think that encompasses him really. Every position he plays to a high level, 6, 8 or 10, which is really interesting. I think something Slot would very much like with the flexibility in his system. Now, hopefully he doesn't become, his versatility doesn't become his downfall, but I think it's very different to that kind of situation, but the skill set, what he does have, translates very well just into... He's just a great footballer, isn't he? He reminds me a little bit of clearly not of the same level, but in terms of the way he passes the ball, the way he sees the game, but a bit of Thiago in him, maybe. But it's another tricky situation. We're already having conversations about how we can fit Szoboszlai and McAllister into the same team and Gravenberch. So Nyoni is probably somewhat of an afterthought there, but it does seem like he's been the one that Slot has really liked as soon as he stepped through a door, which dates as far back to the last pre-season. He could go out on loan. I'm sure there'd be a lot of interest, but it's almost a similar situation. I think if he did go out, you'd want him to be with a team who have a lot of the ball and who are expected to do well in the league, but it's just so unpredictable. But he's been so impressive this pre-season. When he slotted in at centre-back, it's almost mirrors the way Slot used Gravenberch last season as well. And maybe he was a bit fearful for him heading into a game, but he did absolutely fine. I think the best part about it was that you didn't really notice him too much. And I think that's a testament to his skill level. Not too sure about him aerially or things like that, but
that's one of my points. He was actually quite strong in the air as well, in those aerial duels. I mean, obviously, it was Atletico Bilbao's second team, so maybe not the strongest of oppositions, but in those challenges, he was quite strong. And the most impressive part, I think, was there was a moment when Athletic Bilbao was sort of 2-against-1, went clean through on goal, and he stood strong and made almost a Virgil van Dijk-esque clearance. So the way he read that situation and the way he dealt with it, just speaks volumes of his football intelligence. And I thought that was probably the most exciting part about the way he's adapted to that role.
Yeah, it's not just his technical ability on the ball, it's the speed of thought of which he makes the passes and the picture of which he sees. I think that's something that stood out as soon as he came into the under-18s. He's almost a step ahead of everybody else. It's almost a shame that pre-season's ending for these players because they do both have such momentum behind them at the minute. You almost don't want that to halt. The under-21 schedule's slightly skewed as well. There's always gaps. It's a shame they can't be playing week in, week out, but they have not only given something to think about for Arne Slot in pre-season, but just eased the necessity to buy.
Now, I think with Nyoni, he played around 300 or so minutes for Liverpool's first team last season in all competition. What do you think is a reasonable expectation? I asked you this about Ngumoha. What do you think he will be sort of targeting in terms of his minutes? Do you think he can expect to double that and he'll be satisfied with, let's say, 600 minutes or so? Or do you think he will want to get to maybe around 1,000 where he's coming on maybe a bit more regularly in the Premier League and playing and starting the cup games, and maybe Liverpool going on a cup run as well, and being involved in the Champions League too?
Yeah, I think 900 minutes, 1,000 minutes, 10 full 90s really would be a good target for Nyoni. It's just when and where those fixtures are going to come. A Premier League debut would be good. I always say this, but it feels like he's been around so long, but he's yet to make his Premier League debut. So that'll be nice. I can't see Liverpool signing another midfielder this season. I can see Harvey Elliott leaving. So then you'd assume we've got Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Endo, Wirtz. I'd put him as a six choice midfielder. That's not too bad of a position to be in, I don't think. And with that in mind, with the amount of games we play, maybe even potentially anywhere between 900 to 1,200 minutes, something around that, while also just keeping the sharpness ticking over with the under-21s. I imagine if he does stick around, he would potentially be part of the UEFA Youth League squad. Sometimes players are kept to the first team if they're held in high regard. But if we make it to the last stages, I'm sure he could make an appearance there.
Now, we'll sort of pivot to more academy talk because I think both Nyoni and Ngumoha are probably first team players now, but academy level, there's been a couple of changes at Liverpool in the backroom star. Rob Page has been appointed as the under-21 manager, and Simon Wiles has arrived from Manchester United to become the under-18 manager. And on top of that, we've got a bunch of new scholarships arriving at Liverpool's under-18 side. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the new arrivals, the young players coming in from the under-16 level. Who should we keep an eye on? There was, I think, 7 or 8 new scholarships, if I'm correct, or maybe a bit more than that. But out of that group, out of that cohort, who do you think are the names to sort of watch out for?
Well, first of all, we can look at the players There's a number of players who have already made their under-18s debut as under-16 players. There's AJ Yegua, who's a midfielder who's actually a Polish youth international. Harvey Owen has debuted at centre-back, who came in a highly publicised move from Wolves when he was 14, alongside Isaac Moran, who's now actually left the club, which is a shame. I do think he was a quality player. I think one to watch out for out of the players who have already debuted would be Cameron Williams, who's a left back. He was pretty much the first under-16 to get promoted to the under-18s last season. Really aggressive Scottish left back, which is always welcome for Liverpool fans. It's actually been called up by England as well, so that goes to show how well thought of he is. But really attacking player. But in the under-16 nationals, he was actually used as a left winger. But I think when he played for the under-18s, it was his defensive game what stood out. He read the game pretty well. He's quite small in stature, but he's still an intense player, so didn't do too bad at coping with the physicality. So he's a player to watch for me. He's actually already trained with a Scotland senior team. A number of under-17s were called up when he was 15, 16, so must be well thought of, you'd imagine, and having seen him play, I concur. He's that player picked out for me to watch. And then of the group coming up as well, I would say Hayden Murray-Home. He's a midfielder, really technical player. Probably should have been promoted already, although the midfield is slightly crowded at this level, you'd say. However, it's such a good eye for a pass. The way that there's a perfect way on his passes, whether that be from deep to isolate his winger or in the final third. He's really good at deft little touches. He can use any part of his foot. I've seen a bit of footage, and there's flicks, little pokes around the corner to be able to find plays that you don't really think is possible. So midfielder, I was speaking to somebody who knows him very well. He picked up 30 assists and 10 goals at under-16 level. Now, stats can be skewed at that level. Some players dominate. But when it's things like that, it's a little bit different, I think. It's when it relies on the more technical attributes, although assists, as a debate in itself, is it a useful enough stat? It could be a pass to somebody on the halfway line and see dribble everyone and score. But he's a player that does really well, and I'm excited to watch play. It seems that he's played a lot in pre-season already for the under-18s, and looking at the footage of him, his playing style, again, not of the same calibre of player, I'd say. He reminds me a little bit of Kevin De Bruyne in terms of the way he passes the ball, just the type of passes that he looks for as well. So Cameron Williams, Hayden Murray-Home, two real exciting players to watch out for. Definitely
needs to keep an eye out on, and I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. You kind of alluded to it with the Hayden Murray-Home situation. There's a trio of really exciting and hyped under-16 players. That is Joshua Abe, Vincent Joseph, and Eric Farkas, who are all really well thought of and very highly rated at under-16 level. And Farkas and Abe more so, but even in the last game, Vincent Joseph has also made his debut for the under-18s during pre-season. They're all preparing with the under-18s, and they all look like they've sort of already outgrown the under-16 level. How likely do you think it is that they're going to be regulars at under-18 level? And obviously, at the same time, we are talking about players who are approaching their scholarship years next year. So there is a lot of interest in all three of them from other clubs. And obviously, it will involve Liverpool having to sort of change their policy, because we've not really seen at under 18 and under 21 level the levels of promotions from underage players as the likes of Manchester City, Man United and Chelsea have done. So for example, if you're talking about a player who's in the same age group or category as these players, Mavumpa at Chelsea, he's already playing at under 21 level, whereas these guys are waiting to make their official under 18 debut.
Yeah, we see bits and pieces of promotion at Liverpool between under 16 and under 18 level, but we get a lot of drip feeding, I find, where they'll come in for a couple of weeks and then drop back down to under 16 level, or it will usually be towards the end of the season, about the last 5 or 4 games where these under 16 players are introduced, whereas Manchester City, Chelsea, Manchester United, we saw JJ Gabriel, a regular for their under 18s by the end of the season. Not afraid to just put these lads in from the start. Now, there is a duty of care there in terms of the lads what are already in the age groups. Time has to be shared accordingly, but I do think with this trio, we're going to see. I'll speak on the Abe situation. I imagine you're very familiar with the Farkas one, but with Abe, I imagine he'll be an under 18 regular all season. I think it's well publicised that Chelsea do want him. A lot of questions in there all the time. I get, are we going to lose Abe this season, or any of those lads, to be fair? But it's not this season that's a one to worry about. It's the next one. So there's a gap. There's an opportunity to sign when the players turn 14 and then again at 16. And the phrasing that I was told was Chelsea would like to sign the player at the end of the players under 16 season. In terms of Josh Abe, I'm hearing Chelsea might be interested in 1 or 2 more. But I imagine Liverpool will retaliate to that. Not just Chelsea's interest, but also the player's ability. And I think he will be given a prominent role of the under 18s this season. But the scholarship group are maybe slightly lighter on attackers this season. Finn Inglethorpe and Lamar Forrester, the only 2 names. I don't think they'll even be thrusting straight away themselves. For those who don't know, if you're in your first scholarship year as well, you can drop back into the under 16s, which we've seen the likes of Jayden Dans do before. Anyways, and I imagine the current under 18 attackers, Sonny Lambie and Bradshaw, I imagine maybe by Christmas time, I imagine they'll be in the under 21s. So there is space there for Abe on that right hand side, and he's definitely a player to be excited about. As you say, incredibly quick. I like the power in his runs. In really good 1v1 ability, footwork, and while he does operate primarily on the right, there is footage available of him on the left as well, which bodes well. He's scored for Liverpool in this pre-season already, and that did look like it was from the left-hand side. And I imagine he's quite capable all the way across the front line, really. But I imagine there will be efforts made from the club to show him that there is opportunity for progression. Again, speaking to people who know a lot more than me, I said I've not seen too much of him, but what's your thoughts? I'm not sure I'd put him in that elite bracket. They come back to me and say, no, I do put him, I put him in the highest bracket of talent in England. They did say what helps is that the right wing pool for England at the moment isn't too deep. So I imagine it's going to be in a push internationally, and also we'll see him a lot for Liverpool this season. As well, we could see him play with his teammate Eric Farkas on the international stage. but he's a player that you probably know a lot more about than me. With the under-18 group this season, there are going to be a lot of midfielders. So would you say that he's at the level where we could see him playing for the under-18s?
I think so. I think with Eric, obviously I know him very well. I'm consider myself a family friend of his family, so I'm always going to be biased. But I think he's a very talented guy, and Liverpool certainly seem to think that way as well. And if you're looking at that age group, the under-16 age group, which a lot of the current scholarship players will have qualified to be involved in the England under-16, he was the only player who was called up for those friendlies for England, and this year he's the only player who's been called up from Liverpool for the England under-16s, and my understanding is that they very much want him to be playing for England's under-17 team as well, which that's probably the level when international football gets a bit more serious in terms of, having the European Championships and things like that. Obviously, just depends on whether he can get his passport in time. So that is a developing situation, but certainly in terms of under-18 level, having watched some of the pre-season friendlies, he's looked very sharp. He didn't look out of place. I think he makes some great decisions on the ball. He's one of those players who can play in multiple midfield roles as well. So that will help him. And I do think because there is interest in him from elsewhere, I do think Liverpool will make a big bid to entice him to stay. And one of those will be the fact that he will be part of this under-18 squad. That's the only way he can progress and develop. He's sort of outgrown, I think, similar to Abe. They've both outgrown the under-16 level. They need at the next step in their development, and the only way they're going to learn is if they're playing at a higher level and they're testing themselves against tougher opposition. And I think, it's important to note both players have been at Liverpool for a long time. Abe much longer than Eric. He's been at Liverpool since under 9 level. Eric joined 5 years ago, so I think he joined at under 10 or under 11 level. So again, still quite a long time to be at the club. And I think, they will consider themselves Liverpool supporters because they've grown up. And that will hopefully convince both of them to stay, in addition to them getting those regular opportunities. I think I'm definitely of the opinion that I think Liverpool can do more in that area. Obviously, you said, you mentioned it's important to respect the players who are already there. Unfortunately, though, football is a cutthroat sport, and if you have someone who maybe plays at a younger age group but better than your current options, you have to promote them, and it's then up to that player who is in their age group and who just been replaced by a younger player to step up and fight for their spots. So we've seen it with Chelsea, we've seen it with Manchester United, we've seen it with Manchester City, and I think we'll probably see it a bit more with Liverpool as well, because Arne Slot at first team level definitely has, should I say, a more critical eye when it comes to academy players, or he'll be more reticent to use them. He wants them to be of a certain quality, and the only way you're going to develop those players to be of a certain quality is if you challenge them at a younger age, and make sure they develop in the right way. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens.
Unfortunately, just for the word what we're using here, we're talking about these players being promoted to the under-18 level, and that would be a massive achievement, and it would be good for those players. But if they were at Manchester City, Chelsea, I think you'd be looking at them in the under-21 squad by the end of the season, probably. And that must be something that these players think about, especially when we see the peers go on to do these kind of things. So it's really up to Liverpool. I do think we are in a bit of a transitional period. I think last season it felt like the start of a cycle of new players after we saw the likes of maybe like Callum Scanlon, Lewis Koumas, like that group of players start to get their senior loans. It felt like there was maybe at the start of the new players bedding in, but this season it feels like there's definitely a structural transition in terms of the new management, a lot of new coaches, and just new policy really in terms of this kind of promotion. It does seem like there's somewhat of a golden trio at under 16 level. We've not spoken about Joseph yet, but what's different with this is it's been a long time since Liverpool have had a player or group of players that have been hyped like this, that haven't been recruited. The likes of Ben Doak, Rio Ngumoha have all had a lot of hype around the name in the past couple of seasons. But as you say, these lads have been at Liverpool for a long time, and it's good to see players from a pre-academy. I know Farkas was recruited slightly later on, but still at younger age than the normal recruitment process. It's good to see these lads doing well, and as you say, will be Liverpool fans well indoctrinated into the culture at the club, and it would probably be within Liverpool's best interests to look at retaining, especially Farkas and Abe.
I wanted to shout out Vincent Joseph's brother as well, because he was at the academy and he's doing great things at Blackburn, and he's in the under-18 age group, and I think he scored against Liverpool, or had a good game against Liverpool last season. So it's going to be interesting. And I think you mentioned this off air, but it's very interesting that Liverpool haven't brought in any scholarship signings or players of that level. And I think that goes to show just how highly they do rate this trio, because they want to show them that there is a pathway for them here. And, the best way you show them that is by not recruiting anyone else, and making sure that that path to under 18 football, but potentially even under 21 football, is there for them to progress if they continue to catch the eye and continue to develop. But I have to talk about one signing that Liverpool did make, and he's already made his first team debut very quickly. I think on the same day that he was announced, he'd already made his first team debut, and I think he played for the under-21s as well. We're talking about Will Wright here. This is, I would say, it's quite an exciting signing, although probably not on the level of Florian Wirtz or Milos Kerkez or Hugo Ekitike, but Liverpool did beat Arsenal to his signature. They signed him from Salford City, who are obviously owned by, among other people, Gary Neville. So I'm sure they will have been reluctant to strengthen Liverpool. But Will Wright, it seems like he wanted to move to Liverpool. He wanted this move, and he looks like a really exciting prospect. I was looking at players who made their FA Cup debut in the third round of the FA Cup last season. There were only two, Rio Ngumoha and Will Wright, who came on against Manchester City. And I think that goes to show how highly rated he was at Salford. The fact that he scored 50 odd goals last season at academy level is another matter. So what have you heard about Wright, and what can you tell us about him? Do you expect that he will be with the under-21s to start with?
Yeah, I expect him to be straight into the under-21 side. We don't have too many options for strikers at that level. There's Keirol Figueroa. And do you expect Joshua Nilambi will be an option by the end of the season, but he's technically still the under-18s. And Wright's a very, very different striker than to what we normally see. I don't think we've produced a player like him for a time. He looks to be very much of a modern, pure number 9, athletic, tall, just going to run off a shoulder. Although he does look very well rounded. I think if you look at a lot of his footage for the beginning of a clip, you'll see him dropping deep at the beginning of the final third to pick up the ball. And although his dribbling probably doesn't look the most aesthetically pleasing, it does seem to be effective. And I say he looks like he plays off a shoulder in this pure modern finisher kind of way, but he does have quite good range of different types of goals. Actually decent at shooting from range. Just look to power through a lot of his shots. I seem to pick up on. In terms of the move itself, it did look like that Arsenal did have a bid accepted at one point, but he waited for Liverpool because he wanted the move. I was told that that's got a little bit to do with him not wanting to be, and his family not wanting to be uprooted from the northwest, which makes sense. Fair enough to the player. And in terms of these players that we do recruit, what better way to show that there is a pathway than making your debut on the day that you're announced? And it was almost a dream debut, to be fair. Maybe nearly the best of the summer, but maybe the nerves got to him in the moment. But I expect to be with the under-21s, who he's already played for, to be fair. Figueroa's future could be interesting. He's already played one season of under-21 football as an under-21 eligible player, so potentially might be looking at a loan there. Although it would be nice for him to finally get a run of games. And I think Wright will need some time to settle in. I think the level that he was playing at last season, we probably shouldn't read too much into in terms of we're just hit with scored 50 goals. But it wasn't at the highest of levels. Not to discredit him, you look at a lot of the goals that he scored, and they do look like they would be transferable. Hits the corners a lot, which is always a good sign. And I don't even think he was at Salford for too long. I think he was only there a year and a half. He was playing grassroots football before that, so what a rise he's had to the top. But I would expect under-21 football for him.
Yeah, it's important to caution people because the step up from Salford is going to be huge. Even I think just to play at under-21 level initially. It was encouraging that he didn't look out of place in that cameo he had for Liverpool's first team.
He won the ball quite well at 1 or 2 points, which was good to see.
Yeah, I think that is very good always to see for a Liverpool forward. And it's going to be exciting, I think, to see him link up with Rio Ngumoha and other players in that squad as well.
It's a very different signing. We never normally sign players at that age group the year after a player will be signing the scholarship. I was speaking to somebody saying that it's actually a cheaper option, really, than waiting for tribunal. And that type of payment, we can just pay now. There's no long process where the Premier League has to ratify it and make sure that everything's fine, because it's just a transaction, really. It's a very different signing for Liverpool to be making, which is interesting, and maybe more of a sign of that transitional structural policy change that we was talking about.
Now, one player that we are going to have to wait to see a few more years is Sidy, Barhama, Ndiaye. It is my understanding that Liverpool have agreed to sign him, and he's travelled to Merseyside over the course of last week. I think the expectation is that he's going to be here around 3 weeks or so. So he's still got 2 more weeks at Liverpool, but he's been training with Liverpool. He's a 15-year-old Senegalese winger. Spotted at the Under-17 African Cup of Nations, where he was playing an age group above, but still very much caught the eye with his I think, well, first of all, speed, incredibly fast player. And also, I think he's a very intelligent player in his passing and that sort of area of his game. Now, he made his debut against Fleetwood in the 3-1 victory that Liverpool had in that pre-season friendly. Liverpool didn't officially publicise that he was involved in that game, but I believe he was, and he provided the assist for Liverpool's third goal, which was scored by Joshua Sonny Lamby. Looked, from what I have seen and heard, to be incredibly fast and looked to have a good game. Obviously, sort of capped that off with an assist as well. Have you heard anything about him, or what can you tell us?
He's a player that I'm not very familiar with, to be honest. I'm jealous that you've been able to see what type of player he is live. But he operates primarily on the left-hand side, is it?
Yeah, he's right-footed, so I believe his future at Liverpool, just looking at the profile of wingers, both Klopp and Slot like to have used. I think in the end he will end up as a left winger, but he can play on the right as well.
So would he be in the same age group as the players we've been speaking about today?
Yep.
So, which would make for quite the crop of players, really. So when would he be eligible to officially sign for Liverpool? Is it when he turns 18 or?
Yeah, so it's when he celebrates his 18th birthday, which is a while away because he was born in 2009, December 31st. So I believe he will be able to join in January 2028 officially. Until then, as per FIFA rules, FIFA allow a player to train with a club for up to 8 weeks in a calendar year. So from what I have heard, the plan is for him to come back later this year and potentially even train with the first team. But initially this was just to sort of, get him acclimatized to English football, sort of, train regularly and get some coaching as well. From what I have heard, he's caught the eye. It's a different type of signing for Liverpool because we've not seen this before, but it is something I think Liverpool are trying to do more of. Kyle Warbanks was appointed last year in November as Liverpool's global talent scout manager, and I think it went under the radar that Liverpool made several appointments in May for global talent scouts, including Stuart Downing, who is a former Liverpool player, of course, but they also brought in Tika Musonda, who was at Chelsea's academy, and he's now working for Liverpool. Sorry, he was a player at Chelsea's academy, I should correct, but he also worked there as a scout, and then he worked at Tottenham, and he arrived from Tottenham. And there was another appointment as well. I forget his name, but he was from South Africa. So Liverpool are trying to make progress on that front, and I believe there will be more signings like Ndiaye in the future. The way it works, because I think people are confused by this still, but if you look at what Chelsea did with Kendrick Paez, how they signed him when he was around 16, and they had to wait 2 years for him to be involved or officially join the club. I believe that's how it's going to work with Ndiaye. Paez, obviously similar to Ndiaye, came to Chelsea and trained with Chelsea, especially in their pre-season. Obviously, Liverpool's plan is to have a multi-club model. Michael Edwards confirmed that. So for me, Ndiaye really, I think when he turns 18, similar to how Paez has now gone on loan to Strasbourg, I expect him to follow that route. And, it is 2.5 years into the future. Yeah. By that point, you'd assume Liverpool will have had that multi-club in place. So I think the plan is for him to, join whoever that second club it is that Liverpool are going to have and go out on loan and acclimatise first to European football. He'll have that advantage of being able to train with Liverpool every now and again, and I'm sure Liverpool will help in other ways as well. when he's back home in Africa. But yeah, he's a really exciting prospect, and I think someone to keep an eye on. I'm sure before he joins Liverpool, we'll see him involved in more African youth competitions, and even potentially, under 17 World Cups and those kind of competitions. So yeah, he's one name to keep an eye on.
I think we spoke about it before, but having seen just the footage of the assist in that one clip, he did look a little bit raw, even in terms of his dribbling. He did take his man on after standing up, his fullback, but he got lucky with a bounce, and he managed to find a pass across goal. Looked to be stretching, but at 15, still very impressive. I do think it's interesting that there's really only been one other case of Liverpool maybe attempt to miss type of signing, which I'm sure we will both remember as Fatuwu, who is now at Leicester.
Yeah.
Which didn't quite come off, but that coincides with Michael Edwards' last stint at the club, and then there was no real deal like that in his time over.
Taiwo Avani, was the last one from Africa.
Yeah, so it certainly looks like it's something Edwards is at the forefront of, maybe not picking the players or sorting things out, but that's his idea of how he wants this multi-club model to work, as you say, and hopefully there's movement there. We hear every couple of months or so FSG are interested in buying a club from Spain, the second tier, or France particularly, and nothing ever seems to end up coming to fruition. But yeah, it's an exciting time. That would certainly be an exciting, at this current point of time, of course, development can go anywhere, but Vincent Joseph, Eric Farkas, Josh Abe, and Ndiaye, all in one age group, is certainly something very exciting, although it could be many, many years before we see them, even one of them, near the first two.
Yeah, for now, they're definitely just names to keep an eye on. But Lewis, I think that is all. We've probably had a marathon of an episode here talking about a lot of subjects, and I really appreciated your time. And if people do want to find you, where can they keep up to date with your work?
Oh, just type Lewis Bauer in on Twitter if you would ever be interested in that, and it'll come up somewhere.
Well, you know what? I'm going to save people the time. They don't have to type it in. It's going to be in the description below, so you'll just need to click on the link, and I thoroughly recommend following Lewis. He is the go-to guy when it comes to Liverpool's academy. So yeah, definitely just check him out, give him a follow, and thanks again, Lewis. I really appreciate it for you coming on.
No worries, Mel.
And thanks everyone for listening in as well. As always, if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us a lot. And leave your comments in the comment section below as well. Thanks everyone.